Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and early, 4 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. You can probably tell by my demeanor, I'm a little ticked off this morning. I can't hide it. It's a story about the Washington Redskins and a radio personality, sports radio personality in Oklahoma City being fired just this last week. A recording came. The links will all be down below, so you could hear the actual recording. You could hear his apology about it. The person, his name is Sam Hayes. He's a previous pro football player. He's a sports personality now. There was a recording in 2016. There's controversy whether this was a hot mic or it was like a hidden tape or something, and to me that doesn't really matter. Okay, and let me tell you about the recording first of all. Like I said, the links will all be down below. On tape, for one of the first things he says is, why haven't the natives been talking about this forever? Why now are they complaining about the Redskin name? That's the first thing he says. And then the other sports personality that got fired, this woman, she says, well, because they've been trashed the whole time. Being a half Native American myself, French Canadian, and recovery from drugs and alcohol, I'm no stranger to this whole thing about this whole idea that Native Americans have a problem with alcohol. And then Sam Hayes goes on to say, hashtag Lysol, hashtag gold paint in a plastic bag. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is a reference to huffing. In very low-income poverty areas, this is a method used, when you don't have a lot of money, it's a method used to get high. Why gold paint? I don't know. Why Lysol? I don't know. This is actually probably one of the very few drugs that I never did in my life. And then, in this recording, they go on to say kind of, ironically, they say, hashtag hot mic. Boy, we'd get fired if there was ever a hot mic. So, this recording was made in 2016. It just came to light. Okay. So then there's an apology from Sam Hayes, saying he more or less says that, well, he just went along with this because he's African American himself and he wanted to fit in. And he didn't want to be singled out, so he kind of just went along with this, which is kind of ironic, too, because I'll talk about that in a second. But let me just get to the point of this. It's not the comments about substance abuse and Native Americans that gets me angry. I'm just used to that. It gets me angry, but I'm just used to that. What really gets me angry here is his initial question. Well, geez, why haven't Native Americans been complaining about this forever? Being an African American man, I would think that he would understand this. Going back to the 1700s, the 1800s, the words that were used right to African American people's faces, what they were called in the 1700s, in the 1800s, in the 1920s, the 1930s, even back in the 1950s, some of the words that were commonplace used to call African Americans back then are no longer used now. Why? Were African Americans, they were fine with that back then, and now they've just recently had a problem with it? No. We are evolving as a people, and minority people are giving more of a voice to talk about these racist nicknames they've been given. You'd think that being a black man, an African American man, that he would realize. It's like me asking him that same question. Well, back in the 1920s, the word Negro, was that okay? Or some of the other much worse names. How come you guys didn't seem to have a problem with it back then? Why are you so angry about it now? That's what gets me angry. Just because of his ignorance. His lack of knowledge about the situation. He assumes that just up until 2020, Native Americans were fine with it. It must be the culture wars. No, this name came up. There's another link down below that gives the whole timeline. 1930s, the name came up even as soon as the 1970s, there was talk about this name being changed because of you're naming somebody by the color of their skin, which that's pretty much its definition of racism. And, and other people argue, well, it's a compliment to their warriorism or some other crap like that. In the 1992 Super Bowl, Super Bowl 26, I think it was. I can't remember exactly. Washington Redskins. There was, I think it was at least 300 protests. 3,000 There was over 300 protesters, Native Americans. It might have been 3,000. I might have left out a zero. Protests back in the 90s. Native Americans were protesting this. So this didn't just pop up in 2020. It's that question that really gets my goat about Sam Hayes here. It is just ignorance about this whole situation. And he almost uses that as an excuse. He says in his apology, in the second recording, he says, I was just, he was just asking a simple question. It was a simple, honest question. Why, why are they angry now? Why not before? And that's what makes me angry. Now, the other thing here is being an African American man. He says that one of the other reasons or excuses he uses for this, it's like he still just doesn't even get it, and he's just using excuses. Well, this was in 2016, and now it's just being used now because it was okay back then. It's same excuse. He's saying it was recorded in 2016, but now because of the culture wars, it's being brought up and I'm being fired for it. Like it was okay back then, but now it's not okay. No, it was never okay. And then he used the excuse about being an African American man and wanting to fit in because he was afraid of being picked on. That's basically, the links will be down below. You listen to it for yourselves. And I'm paraphrasing here. But he more or less says that, he didn't feel like he fit in. And he just went along with these jokes, but he didn't feel comfortable. Geez, maybe that's how the Native Americans felt when they didn't speak up back in the 1920s, the 1930s, 1940s, when this name first came up. The same way. They felt like they couldn't speak about it, or they'd be singled out. They'd be ostracized. They'd be picked on. Or worse. The same excuses that this man uses to get out of this situation are the reasons that I'm so angry. All right, like I said, the links will be down below. I'm sorry, like I said, I tried to calm down before I did this video, and I wish I had waited a little longer. The links will be down below. You guys have a great Tuesday.